Like many other brands, Marc and Sons is one I have covered here a lot, and like a few others recently, it's also been a while since I last looked at a watch from this German-based brand. The military diver, as it is dubbed, sells for $750 and is part of a new line of dive watch models that are rugged and classic looking, offering all you would expect with a dive watch these days, such as a rotating bezel, a ceramic bezel insert, a screw down crown, 500 meters of water resistance, and a helium release valve, and it's only 12 millimeters thick. Let's go ahead and dive in and see what these new models are all about. First, let's talk about the design, which some have compared to the Breitling Superocean. And if you look at the bezel and the overall silhouette, I can absolutely see that. And this can probably be looked at as a budget Superocean, though I'm not really comparing the two watches. That would be kind of ridiculous. But especially this K-shape and crown guard and dial are very different, and they're actually less cluttered and cleaner, at least when it comes to the dial, as I always feel that Breitling tends to overdo it. Another thing that someone brought up was the marlin, or more importantly, what Marc and Sons states is a swordfish, which is now the new logo for the brand. Someone wondered if this is why Casio can no longer use the marlin logo in the rest of the world. They can in the USA. I know, especially with logos and characters like this, the marlin and the swordfish can look the same, but since this is supposed to be a swordfish, I don't think it has anything to do with that. So on to the case design, which I swear I have seen before, and initially thought it was similar to the Outsider's Revolution I reviewed a few years back, but that doesn't have the protrusion on the 9 o'clock side of the case with the helium release valve. But I swear I've seen this case design before, but couldn't find it or remember it. If you've seen it before, drop the brand name and model down in the comment section. But whether or not this is similar or exact to another brand doesn't really matter. What you do get is a very well made and attractive case, chunky crown guards, and if you ever find yourself inside a dive chamber or habitat, a helium release valve. Notice on the top of the case you see just a little chamfer of high polish. It's a nice touch, though not very noticeable unless the light catches it just right. I imagine it is much more pronounced on the non-coated stainless steel models. It's also a very slim case that wears nicely on the wrist, and you normally don't see a 500 meter dive watch that is only 12 millimeters thick. I will add that nowhere does it state anything about ISO certification or compliance, so take that for what it is. The dial on this example has a beautiful sunray pattern, and the textured circle that runs the dial reminds me of an old music record and creates a nice look, and it seems to work well for a dive watch. As I said, it's a very clean and uncluttered dial. It has the date position at the 6, a favorite of mine, and the yellow accents are just that. Yes, the yellow is prominent, but it's not overdone and allows this to be worn in a lot of settings without looking too much like a bumblebee. The crown and bezel action are very good, nice tactile feedback, and the ceramic bezel insert is brushed ceramic, another favorite of mine. One thing I kept coming back to when doing this review is just how good and solid this watch feels on the wrist and when in hand setting the time or rotating the bezel. Overall, it just has a very well-constructed feel about it. But my biggest disappointment with this watch is going to have to be the case back. It's just not a nice stamped engraving, and the finish they used scratches and mars easily, as you can see. It's very unattractive, and it would have been much better had they used the same DLC coating they used on the rest of the watch. Underneath is the SW200-1, the go-to movement these days for, well, a lot of micro and macro brands. Oris uses them, among others. As I have talked about, I have never had an issue with an SW200-1, though I rarely manually wind my watch either. I do want to talk about this DLC coating, though. As you can see, this is not a matte finish. It is not a bead blasted matte DLC coating. It's a brushed DLC coating. It makes it appear almost charcoal gray when harsh light hits it, just like the studio lights I am using. But I haven't experienced an issue with the coating, but I do want to point out that when you remove the screws to size it, you will see the holes in the links are not completely plated. This is not exactly uncommon, and it's usually done to allow for a better fit between the links, and it's possible the bracelet was plated after assembly, but overall I do think it is a good job, at least on my example. On my 7.5 inch or 19.05 centimeter wrist, the fit is pretty good, and you do get the traditional microbrand ratchet extension clasp. This is the larger clasp that does take up a lot of real estate, and if you have a smaller wrist and you remove a lot of links, you will have a bracelet that is mostly clasp, so keep that in mind. Lume is pretty good as well. I give it a B plus. It's not the strongest or the longest lasting loom out there, but it does the job and should be more than suffice for most. And as you can see, that fully indexed bezel is loomed as well. And overall, it's very good looking as far as the loom application, as you can see. One last thing as I try to address this more and more is where this is made. I think I spoke about this in the last review of the brand, and there are a lot of rumblings online, but nothing confirmed, is that even though it says made in Germany and that is where the company is located, many believe they are produced in China and assembled in Switzerland or even Germany. And some models may be done at one place and others another. And unlike made in Switzerland, which is, as we all know, is not as stringent as we would like, made in Germany is even less. But with all that said, I do like the case shape and the overall look of this model. It's clean and classic, and it's done with modern materials. It's a good looking dive watch, and if you don't like the DLC in yellow, there are stainless steel versions and other colors available. I don't love the new swordfish logo, but I'm not a big fan of logos or characters on a watch, so that is very subjective on my part. That is all for this one, but I want to hear from you, so sound off in the comments below on what you think of this piece. All links will be in the description, including one to a written review, and I hope you check that out. Also, please be sure to check out all our other video reviews. I will have some linked at the end of the video, and all of them are linked down in the description. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit notifications so you never miss any of our videos. This is Don Evans from Watch Report. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.